Hello, my beautiful people. It's a beautiful day, sunny outside, lovely outside. That's why I decided to come out here to make this video real quick. Um, I just got back from the gym, had a really good workout. I was in the gym today, right? And I saw this girl. She was looking real good, right? Like my type, you know. So, I made my way over there, shot my shot. And then at the end, I asked her, if she wanted to hang out sometime. She looked at me. I can't even get the sunlight. She looked at me from head to toe. And then she said, I'm good. So I just laughed and I said, all right, you have a good day. All right. And I just kept it moving. Right. And when it comes down to something such as rejection, like I feel like we take it all the way too personal. Right. And I used to do that. But after a while, after you truly begin to really love yourself, you begin to realize that rejection truly isn't personal. And then you begin to value yourself more. Right. And so if you're watching this, especially if you're a guy, I feel like everybody has to be able to take rejection without allowing it to affect their self-esteem. But if you're watching this, you have to be able to put yourself out there and be able to still love yourself, be able to still feel good about yourself, even when people or the world tells you no, right? That's a point you want to get to in your life. But anyways, I want to talk about something very important today. I might cover that topic on a different video, but I want to talk about something very important. And what I wanted to talk about today was the power of self honesty and why lying to yourself never pays. And why lying to yourself is actually probably the thing that is holding your life back, right? So the other day, I woke up and I was feeling terrible. I was feeling like trash, right? Something had happened the day before. And you know how you sort of go to sleep at night and then you wake up and the thing is still on your chest, right? That's what happened to me. So I woke up, wasn't in a good mood. My spirit was low. And one of the things that I do when I wake up is I journal, right? I've advocated journaling, you know, throughout my videos, right? If you watch my videos, one of the things that I tell you guys to do, is to journal, right? So the first thing when I woke up, I picked up my journal book and I decided to write, right? So I started writing. But as I was writing, I was lying to myself while I was writing, right? I wasn't being honest with myself. I was sort of covering up how I felt with positivity. It's getting kind of dark because I'm walking under a tree, so bear with me. I was sort of covering up how I truly felt with some degree of positivity, right? I was acting as if everything is okay, acting as if everything is all right, even when I know deep down, you know, my spirit was low, right? I think there's a term people use for it called toxic positivity. I don't really like that word, so I don't use it at all. I feel like toxic and positivity being in the same sentence is kind of contradictory. So I don't use that term, but I understand the essence and understand what people are trying to say as well, right? So, I was covering up how I truly felt with lies, and I was masking that lie as positivity, right? And the more I wrote the lies, the more I kept telling myself everything is fine, everything is okay, so on and so forth, the more horrible I felt about myself, the more shit I felt, right? Even though I was telling myself all these positive words, so on and so forth, the more I did that, the worse or the lower my spirit felt. And so I paused for a minute And I said to myself, everything that I just wrote was a lie. I'm lying to myself, and the more I lie to myself, the worse I feel. And so I ripped that page out and I started a new page. And on the new page, I started to be honest with myself. I started to truly speak how I felt, right? I started saying to myself, I'm not in the best mood right now. Um, my spirit feels low. Um, and I really just started to vent, to say the least, right? Really started to express myself in a more honest and open way. And the more I wrote the honesty, how I truly felt, right, the better I really started to feel, right? So damn, my spirit started to feel a whole lot better now that I was truly expressing how I truly felt, right? Instead of lying to myself and covering it up with positivity, right? Or whatever you want to call it. The more I was honest with myself, the better I started to feel. And so at the end, I ended it on a more optimistic note, right? At the end, I said, this storm that I'm going through, this internal storm that I'm experiencing in this moment, it doesn't last forever. It won't be long until my spirit is lifted again. It won't be long until I truly start to feel better again. But I need to give myself the grace. I need to give myself the compassion. I need to give myself the empathy to know that it's okay to not be okay. To know that it's okay to have those low moments. And I don't have to always cover up how I'm feeling. I don't always have to lie to myself and mask my lies I'm telling myself with, false positivity, right? If you want to call it that. I can allow myself to feel how I'm feeling, but still stay optimistic, even when I'm feeling low, right? And I think a lot of us are guilty of lying to ourselves. I think a lot of us are guilty of not being honest with ourselves. A lot of people probably watching this, you've probably been feeling very low for a while. Your spirit has probably been feeling low. You haven't been feeling like your best. You're feeling confused. You're feeling like you don't know where your life path is taking you. You're feeling like things are not going to work out. You might be feeling low in this moment, right? And you're covering it up with lies, and you're masking those lies as you being positive. When in reality, what your spirit wants, what your spirit craves is truth. What your spirit craves is honesty. What your spirit craves is authenticity, right? But you've been covering it up with lies, right? See, here's the thing, any sort of relationship in life, the basis of every relationship is honesty, is truth, right? And like I've said so many times on so many occasions, the most important relationship in life is the one that you have with yourself, right? And if you can't be honest with yourself, if you cannot be truthful with yourself, then your relationship with yourself is never going to be good, right? While I was writing and I was lying to myself about how I felt, in that moment, the inner aspects of myself, right? It knew that I was lying. And since I was lying to myself, I wasn't congruent with myself, right? I wasn't in alignment with my spirit. And that's why I truly began to feel even worse the more I lied to myself, right? Because I wasn't being honest. But the moment I shifted and I started to truly be honest with myself, I started to express how I truly felt. I started to sort of become sort of, I don't know, use the word comfortable. But I started to realize that it's okay to not be okay, and I started to be honest with myself. That's when my spirit lifted, because in that moment I shifted to honesty, I shifted to truth, and my self trust, my self image, it lifted, right? Very often we don't realize it, but what we truly need a lot of times is just to be honest with ourselves. There's a lot of healing that can take place from honesty. There's a lot of healing that can take place from being real with ourselves, being honest with ourselves, right? And not lying to ourselves. How can you truly heal? How can you truly move forward if you continue to lie to yourself? I've used the analogy before when I said that imagine you have an open wound in your chest, right? You have an open wound and you see the wound there, but you lie to yourself and you tell yourself you're not wounded, you tell yourself you're okay, and then the wound stays there and it gets worse over time, becomes infected, and it progresses, right? But if you just shifted your attention and paid more attention to that wound, then you'd be able to tend to that wound. You'd be able to give that wound the attention that it needs in order to heal. And I think in the same way, if we lie to ourselves, we don't be honest with ourselves, then how can we give ourselves the compassion that we need? How can we give ourselves the empathy that we need? How can we give ourselves or facilitate the healing that we truly need, right? If we can't, or if we find it hard to be honest with ourselves, right? There's nothing wrong with saying I'm not okay. There's nothing wrong with saying my spirit is low. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm not feeling my best today. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm not telling you to dwell in that place and, and sort of feel pity for yourself and say that, life is shit, so on and so forth. I'm not telling you to dwell in that place. What I am saying is that it's okay to acknowledge that you feel hurt. It's okay to acknowledge that you're not feeling at your best. There is nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing at all. You don't always have to cover it up with lies. Sometimes what your spirit needs is truth. Sometimes what your spirit needs is to be real, right? This is what I'm saying to you, right? You have to be honest with yourself. Very often we find it hard to even seek out healing. Very often we find it hard to seek out change because we lie to ourselves. We continue to tell ourselves a particular story, a particular narrative, so on and so forth. Even when it comes on to something such as relationships, right? I didn't want to take it there, but let's say you're in a relationship and you know deep down this is meant for you. You know deep down this person isn't in alignment with you. Excuse me if I'm sweating. I gotta stay in the sun because I need to get some vitamin D. But like I was saying, very often we find ourselves in relationships and situations, and we know deep down it's not meant for us. But then we lie to ourselves. We tell ourselves, maybe things will get better. Maybe what I need or what we need is time, right? You know, and we know deep in our hearts that this is not meant for us, but we lie to ourselves and we continue to keep ourselves in a situation that doesn't serve us, right? And if we were to be honest with ourselves, if we start telling ourselves the truth, right, then we can make the choice to choose different, either to leave that relationship, right, or to sort of seek out some sort of change, right, in terms of maybe a counselor, so on and so forth, whatever it is, right? But that's just an example of what I'm saying, right? Very often our lies, our dishonesty with ourselves can prevent us from truly healing and truly growing and moving forward. And our dishonesty and our lives can be the very thing that keeps us stuck in our lives. I think this world is filled with people who find it hard to be honest with themselves. Right? This world is filled with people who continuously lie to themselves, right? And look at the state of the world. Now, most people feel broken inside. Most people, feel lonely. Most people feel like as if their life is meaningless, right? You know, the way our world is right now, a lot of people are in need of healing. But one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people find themselves in that situation is because they find it hard to be honest with themselves. But the moment you start being honest with yourself, the moment you begin to tell yourself the truth, that's when change begins to take place in your life. Either within yourself because your spirit acknowledges, that right now you're in alignment with yourself and you speak in truth, or you acknowledge that you're in a position in which you need help, you're in a position in which you need guidance, and you begin to seek out that healing or that guidance, right? But honesty, being truthful with yourself, even when it hurts, right? Because one of the reasons why a lot of us find it hard to be honest with ourselves is because we believe that telling ourselves the truth would sort of mean, or we sort of believe, whether consciously or unconsciously, that there's something wrong with us, right? And there's nothing wrong with you at all. Nothing at all, right? Telling yourself the truth doesn't mean that you're broken. Like I've always said, it means you're human, right? It means that you go through issues just like every single one of us on this planet or on this earth. But you won't grow, you won't heal, you won't move forward in the right way by continuing to lie to yourself. You have to be honest with yourself, even if it hurts. You have to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the truth, even when it hurts. And your ability to go through that, you know, that sort of pain, initial pain that you might experience as a result of being truthful with yourself, you're going to look back and you're going to be thankful that you were honest, right? I've experienced situations in which, like I said before, the previous example that I gave you guys, in which I was honest with myself, you know, I was thankful that I did that because the moment I truly expressed how I felt, the moment I allowed myself to be vulnerable and not cover it up with lies, I got up from that journaling session feeling a whole lot better, right? And it's hard for me to explain why. Like I said before, there's something within you that knows the truth, right? And whenever you cover it up with lies, you're not in alignment with yourself. But I got up from that session feeling a lot more optimistic and a lot better about myself, right? And sometimes that's all we need, that honesty. And the more you're honest with yourself, the more you're truthful with yourself, is the more you can begin to be honest with others as well. Very often we either find it hard to enforce our boundaries, stand on who we are, tell people the truth, simply because we find it hard to be honest and truthful with ourselves. But like I've said before, every relationship in your life is dependent on the relationship that you have with yourself. And the more that relationship is cultivated through honesty, the more that relationship is cultivated through authenticity and telling yourself the truth even when it hurts, right? The better the relationship with yourself becomes, the better the relationship with others in your life will be, right? Because if you are honest with yourself, then you will find it easier to be honest with others, even when it means that you might lose those people, even if it means that relationship with others might become sort of tainted, if you were to be honest, right? So yeah, that's all I have to say. Start being honest with yourself. Start telling yourself the truth, even if it hurts. Because very often, what your spirit needs, very often, what you need to move forward with your life and to grow is honesty, to be truthful with yourself. And even if it hurts, your future self or the more evolved you will thank you for being honest with yourself. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Get out there in the sun, get outside, enjoy life, um, continue to live. Um, and yeah, hopefully y'all are doing well. Um, let me know how y'all are doing in the comments because I love to hear from you guys as well. And yeah, take some time to enjoy life and relax. And whatever it is that you're going through in this moment, everything will be okay. Everything will be fine. It might seem as if everything is out of place at this moment, but sometimes when everything is falling apart, it's truthfully falling apart so that things can truly come together. You know, sometimes when your old world feels shaky, it's because life is removing everything that is not in alignment with you in order to bring you a life that is suitable and in more alignment with the new you. So continue to move forward and remain optimistic. See y'all in the next one. Peace and blessings.